Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. It is a pleasure to be in your homes on this Thursday afternoon. I am looking forward to the show today. So I will tell you to please like, share this page, and call your friends, families, anyone who you know will be interested in hearing about the conversation today, which is about business ethics. As usual, I like to give a shout out to my guests from the previous show because I am thankful to every guest who appear on this show, Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. And I would like at this time just to remember Mr. George Mizik. He was on the show last, and he spoke about generational land in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Anyone of you who would have missed that episode, please feel free to go back on my Facebook page as well as take a look at it on my YouTube channel for those who do not have a Facebook page. And the YouTube channel is Vernica Delancey. A lot of information was covered in that show about generational property, and also Mr. George Mizik, his information was shared with you. Therefore, if you have any situation like that that you need to be attended to, please feel free to reach out to him where he can advise you on the possible steps forward in getting those properties sorted out. It was a very interesting show. You could also go through the comments to see some of the questions that were asked, and I'm sure you would also benefit from those questions. As usual, I also would like to say, if you have any comments, please put in the comment section. Please let us know where you're watching from. Also, if you have any questions about our subject today, please feel free to leave that in the comments box as well. And once the show is completed, we will be sure to go over those questions or comments and answer as best as we can. And also our guest speaker for today, his information will be left in the comment section just for you to review and to reach out to him should you have any questions. So without any further delay, I am excited, like I say, to have this conversation today about business ethics. Yes, it does relate to real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Anytime you think ethics, you're thinking about all businesses. And I think that everyone should be leaning towards having proper, good business ethics in their day-to-day operation of their business. So, but today we're going to apply it a bit to the real estate industry and how we as real estate agents should possess good business ethics. So without any further delay, I would ask Bishop Bernard Young to please introduce himself fully to us this afternoon. Bishop Young, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vanika. Before I introduce myself, I must commend you, first of all, for putting forward this program, which is extremely educational.
Thank you.
It's uplifting, and it's empowering a generation of persons here in the Turks and Caicos Islands to be more astute and aware of not only real estate issues, but everything else that business and life and socialization touches. So you must be commended as a Turks and Caicos Islander to have this kind of initiative to ensure that our people and everyone and sundry is empowered. So I just wanted to start off by saying that to you personally. My name is Bernard Young. Yes, I am a bishop in the Lord's Church. And I'm sorry about that. And yes, I have a business experience. I spent many years in the banking sector, financial services sector. I've been also engaged in the downstream oil business, marketing end. I've also been exposed to hotel management and hotel operations. And after you live for so long, X number of years, and you're totally vested in business, you come across and understand how linkages and how various things connect. And you understand better too how the things that ought to connect don't. I'm presently with Grace Bay Realty as a real estate advisor, real estate agent, and been in the real estate business for the last 4.5, almost 5 years. I've been with 2 other real estate companies, and now I'm with Grace Bay Realty. And essentially, I bring to the table I bring to the business climate a multiplicity of experiences and opportunities to help empower, like you're doing in so many different ways through the educational component, individuals in different areas of endeavor. And I'm delighted just to be on the show today to talk about something near and dear to my heart, business ethics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bishop Young. Obviously, from your resume, you are well qualified to speak with us today. You have a well-rounded wealth of knowledge. And also,
Yes,
I'm sure that you are an asset to the company, Grace Bay Realty, that you're with as a real estate advisor. And of
Yes,
course, if this is the topic we're speaking about today, we can only imagine that's exactly what you are portraying there in the real estate field at Grace Bay Realty. So at this time, I'm going to just go right into the questions. And also, I know that you have an empowerment program.
Yes. I forgot to mention I'm heavily vested in training and human development. So it's easy to resonate with what you're doing because I see that empowering component. And that's why I hasten to commend you in the initiative that you're doing, because it's about people empowerment, educational empowerment. Very important if we're going to move and advance our whole, people to another level of consciousness and awareness and productivity.
Exactly. You're on point. So we're going to move right into the questions for today. And I'm just pausing for a moment. Again, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section and we will try to get to them. So my first question for you this afternoon is just to explain to the listening audience what exactly is business ethics and why is business ethics so important?
Okay, I want us to wrap our mind around this concept. Ethics you touched on it a little earlier in your opening comment. Ethics touches every fabric and fiber of our lives. Mm-hmm. You have various expressions of ethics. Mm-hmm. What we're talking about in terms of business ethics today is how that plays out in every business dimension, not only in real estate, which we're speaking to today, but in your day-to-day dealings, in your day-to-day cutting of deals and making covenants and cutting agreements and everything. There is an ethical component. There's an ethical standard. And for the topic we're dealing with today, ethics implies that we are in possession of an awareness and a consciousness of our social, corporate responsibility that's greater than our interest in pure profits and our interest in the profit motivation only.
I like that sentence.
And ethics and ethical awareness places a great demand on leadership to behave and to respond with integrity towards all stakeholders' interests, not just the shareholders, but the employees, the suppliers, the banks, outside contractors, everyone who you touch and do business with. Ethics implies that you look after their well-being by being ethical in your dealings and in your behavior. Ethical behavior makes a solemn demand on leadership to temper their decisions and make it in alignment with not only shareholders' interests, but stakeholders. There are two different things here. Shareholders versus stakeholders. Stakeholders are all the other persons that will be affected by your decision making, if it's good or if it's bad. So this thing is bigger than, I should say, life itself, because it's across the span of life.
Yes.
Ethical leadership creates what we call value for all stakeholders, which these things include respect, fairness, justice, sustainability, and long-term wellness of both the community and the environment. Mm-hmm. Ethics even touches the environment. At Grace Bay Realty, for example, our business model has three components: people, mm-hmm. planet, then profit. You look after people, you protect the environment, and the end result is you will be profitable, because there is a moral arc of the universe mm-hmm. that says if you do right, right comes back to you. Right. Conversely, if you do wrong, wrong comes back to you. And so many people take short-term profit-driven decisions to the detriment of long-term sustainability.
Right.
Understand that well.
Yeah.
So good corporate governance is critical, very important, and ethics entails all of this. I mean, you would remember not so long ago, we had a meltdown, which was seen in the 2008 financial crisis, which was really on a macro scale, on a global scale, mm-hmm. a meltdown where regulators, businesses mm-hmm. refused. I mean, financial sectors, the insurance companies refused to adhere to ethical guidelines and became driven and motivated purely by profit. That was, I mean, after they did the assessment, after everything, all the meltdown happened, people lost money, people's lives were wrecked, bailouts happened for banks mm-hmm. with taxpayers' money. The very banks who made such decisions that hurt everybody, it was all about profit.
Yeah.
And this drive for profit, without understanding everything has a cycle. That's why innovation and change and upgrades and constantly mapping the environment to understand how business is shifting, so you could be on the cutting edge of change and keep your sustainable profit. People were just taking unnecessary risk, and it resulted in a meltdown. And shortly after the meltdown, mm-hmm. and the assessment was done, it was quickly understood and recognized that the problems stem from unethical decisions and unethical practices. So hence, mm-hmm. Post 2008, there's been this flurry in corporate America, in Europe, in the globe, and everywhere else to safeguard public trust. You know, banks and insurance companies and businesses one time ago used to be the guardians of the public trust.
Right.
And that all went away. So we've seen this resurgence in ethics as a high ticket item. They're teaching it in universities. It becomes very important. We've seen regulations passed, mm-hmm. new regulations to tighten the reins on being able to take certain types of decisions without the controls in place. It's all stemming from the macro, wider meltdown because of a breakdown in ethical standards. And here in our micro environment in the Turks and Caicos, we see some of the meltdown effects.
Right.
It's amazing how something can happen in a bigger scale and trickle down to you, who might be doing something right on a smaller scale, but you still end up getting affected.
Correct. From your conversation, there are a few points that I would like to ask about, but I'm sure when I ask some of the questions, the other questions, they will touch on that, because some of the things, for example, you're talking about being able to regulate, and I'm sure we will talk about the FSC later on as it relates to risk.
Yes.
And also,
Yes.
like you said, leadership within leadership roles, thinking people versus profitability. So, there are a few points that comes to mind, but I
Right.
would like to get to the other questions and then, because I think they will come out as well. So, but in all of this that you said about ethics, can you pinpoint exactly and tell me how does it relate to the real estate business in the Turks and Caicos Islands?
Okay. Now we're talking how a macro reality has affected us at the micro level.
Yes.
We must be able to see the connection between the two to better able to comprehend and navigate our local situation with accuracy and precision.
Right.
So how does ethics now translate and ethical decision makings and ethical consciousness now translate into our local situation? The real estate business in the Turks and Caicos Islands involves substantial capital investments by both local and foreign investors who invest in various types of properties.
Right.
Freehold, right?
Right.
And freehold title is safeguarded.
Yes.
And guaranteed by the Turks and Caicos Islands government.
Correct.
We know that in our torrents system.
Correct.
That's an ethical move.
Yeah.
You see the connection?
I give that
to first of all,
yes,
safeguard title free and clear from any liens and encumbrances and any foul play or anything like that
from happening.
Exactly. That unto itself is an ethical decision. Now, talking more about real estate, this act of good faith, for example, by the government to safeguard and to guarantee property title, in my view,
right,
as I said earlier, is an ethical initiative that garners confidence to anyone wishing to invest in our beautiful, by nature, Turks and Caicos Islands.
Right.
Now,
so before you finish, I'm just thinking, just to be on a cautious side here. You are a guest on the show. I know that you are a real estate agent, but today you are on your own representation and not on the staff of the Turks and Caicos Real Estate Association.
Absolutely.
I just want to be clear about that, because I don't want it to go back to say you are coming here to represent the association as that we are on clear footing. Go ahead.
Right. These are my views based on my pilgrimage in life and business and experiences, culminating in my time here, which has been 10 years. So I'm sharing with you what I have gleaned from my pilgrimage, which can either be embraced and used or rejected. But I'm just sharing, and you're absolutely right. It's not representing the views of anyone else other than what I've seen. And I appreciate you for accentuating that fact. So that there's no throwback at you or throwback. You know how it goes. I understand all of that. Now, in my view, I like to preface my remarks, okay? In my view, this pursuit of maintaining high professional standards in terms of sales and service, the Turks and Caicos Island Real Estate Association has also instituted guidelines to promote and ensure ethical consciousness in the real estate business transactions through required due diligence and other custom initiatives, all aimed at achieving a very high standard in real estate practice. See what I'm saying? So what we see in our manual, what we see in other documents all aimed at fleshing out this ethical principle to make sure we do our due diligence, to make sure we do our know your customer and all the other things that we do connected to legitimize the authenticity of the source of funds and all of the other things we do is all tying back to this ethical issue, this necessity to ensure that we have implicit in our dealings high ethical standards that we can adhere to.
So basically what you're saying is that you do have rules and regulations as a guideline that you must uphold as a real estate agent in order to ensure good ethics within the association.
Exactly. Okay. They are known, they are published, and also there's a proficiency examination that every person must pass. All this is part of that preparation to ensure high level of knowledge, service delivery, consciousness of ethics, and ethical standards are in place. So this is all, an integral part of this macro reality trickling down to us, this micro situation. And this is very important to understand how the dots connect and why things go the way they do and how they go and why they go. Now, sorry, that's...
You touch on a little point to say that, as real estate agents, you're not just dealing with the local community, but you're also dealing international. So I would say, and I guess this is a relevant part as to why ethics is so important in the real estate industry. And could you elaborate on that a little bit more, I guess, just to tell, just for people to understand why that is so important?
Okay, our business is highly competitive. At the level we're at here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So it is a highly competitive, and it's a business in which the way it's structured, you could be adhering to ethical standards, and it's possible for someone not to and get the business.
Right.
So the question becomes, if I'm doing it right and I can't eat,
right?
Because someone else might be doing it another way. Now, some of the things that we must be aware of, the real estate business is very relational. Relational from this perspective. As a real estate agent, the more you're exposed to different levels of the community, people in the community at a local level, but then there's the international level where connections through attorneys, accountants, banks, insurance companies, that pre-existing connection that is already in place that feeds a lot of real estate companies with business. It's not so much that you might have to spend marketing dollars to advertise your business globally, but a pre-existing system already existed, feeds into itself. And then if you're part of that system, you're going to eat. But if you're not part of that system, it's going to be very tough. So what I'm proposing here in terms of ethical alignment, ethical thinking, ethical standards, is across the board for all and sundry. All of us have to understand that ethics critical to the survivability, sustainability, continuity, and good business practices for Turks and Caicos as a jurisdiction and for protecting the industry. Not only the real estate industry, because it's tied to the construction industry, it's tied to the banking and insurance and the legal framework. It's employing individuals at different levels in construction and other ancillary services. So we have to understand the bigger, wider implication of all of this on all of us.
Right.
And understand that there must be more of a level playing field so that we all have opportunities and access, and it's just not for some,
right,
to the detriment of all.
Of all. Okay, you also spoke about, like, again, talking about that, but also about the competitiveness of the real estate business. And this brings a few questions to mind in terms of protecting, being ethical to your purchasers or your vendors, because, I mean, even through the competitiveness as a real estate agent. So how is it that, I guess, talk about a little bit more about transparency in terms of being ethical towards these persons that you are dealing with?
We owe the same high degree of service delivery and standards as it relates to ethics, not only to our vendors, but to each other.
Correct.
And herein lies the dilemma, because of the competitive nature of the business. We find, in truth, and we have to be truthful and be honest, we find sometimes we slip through the cracks ethically, and sometimes can operate in a way that's detrimental to our fellow or sister realtor, and sometimes even in some of the things we do. I've seen instances, for example, if I might share it, where people move other people's signs intentionally, premeditatedly. I mean,
right,
purposefully, not by accident. You didn't drive in the area and just hit the sign by accident and fell down.
Right.
No, it was removed, or information going from one brokerage house concerning someone else in another brokerage house. Sometimes negative things that are said that could turn away a vendor from using that other brokerage house.
Right.
These things are real, but of course, we don't get to talk about it, and we don't get to speak to it, because a lot of times it's just on the surface level, or just under the surface, and we tend to keep things quiet. But this kind of show just allow us to be real, to really talk. If we're going to improve, if we're going to break down the barriers and break down some of the walls and some of the disconnects,
right,
we have to be able to discuss it openly and learn to handle each other differently with honesty, integrity, transparency. If you can help someone, or even I've had instances where, for example, I start to talk to a client, and sometimes vendors do this to you. They go to you, then they go to somebody else, and they go to somebody else, picking up information and tidbits that they need to ultimately make a decision with. And then finally, after you've done all the work and put in all the time, they go to someone entirely different to transact the sale. And sometimes you get the feeling that was just a strategy all along, engineered by the end receiver of the business to just get information that they might not have known themselves about a particular piece of property. And that's unethical. You can't put your hand on it, you can't prove it, but that's an unethical act.
Yeah. I mean,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So basically, also what you're saying is that as agents, you go through a lot of things where you're tested and you're tried, and you have to learn to stay in alignment with the ethical practices of the association.
Right. Exactly. You don't do unto others as they do unto you.
Yeah.
It's a golden rule. It's a golden rule, Anika. It's a golden rule. But of course, you have to be guided by a standard in your life to begin with that would compel you not to render the same act actions that someone else renders on you.
Right.
So ethical standards, and like I said to you earlier in the opening comments, the universe, and I do believe this with all that is in me, all that is ingrained in me, the universe rewards back to us exactly what we sow into it in our dealing with other people. And when it comes back, a lot of time, people don't connect it to actions taken previously because it don't come back in the same way that you sowed it.
Right.
It can come back in so many different ways. And sometimes it comes back to hurt the very things we love.
Right. Correct.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it is the truth. The truth is the truth. So
Yes.
back to also, like you said, the Turks and Caicos Real Estate Association, they have their rules and regulations that helps agents to be in line in terms of ethics. So what,
Yes.
what control measure, this is something you spoke about earlier, that is used to ensure that the real estate association, other than their rules and regulations, that they adhere to these standards. And I'm sure you would probably say the Financial Services Commission. And if you can explain a little bit more about that, all about accountability.
Oh, okay. The regulators, those that have regulatory responsibility, that carry regulatory capacity, and I would wish to add this, separate and apart from the FSC, the Financial Services Commission. I'm going to explain that in 1 minute.
Yeah.
But within the framework of each brokerage house ought to be compliance officers, persons who are ensuring that the due diligence and everything necessary with each transaction is done to uphold the high ethical standards that we treat and deal with each other at that level. There's also a level of that with TCREA, the overall body that is responsible for real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands, even though you can sell real estate without being a part of TCREA.
Correct.
But that TCREA grouping is the largest contingent of brokerage houses, and the sale volume, when you look at it on an annualized basis, that pass through the TCREA brokerage houses is an astronomical number. So if you're going to affect an area long-term and impactfully, then we must say what TCREA does or does not do has a vast impact on the business, ethics, and everything else. So TCREA has a responsibility to ensure high ethical standards are maintained at all costs. And there's an ethics committee among many committees, the training committee, which I'm a part of, but there's also an ethics committee whose primary job is not only to just look at what's in the manual and upgrade it every now and again, but to ensure that the high level of quality and service delivery is implicit in our daily transactions, in our thought processes, in how we do business as a basic fundamental standard of operation.
Correct.
Now, we move to the overall regulatory body, the Financial Services Commission, who we know have been the primary drivers of the enforcement of the AML, anti-money laundering, and the ATF, the anti-terrorist financing legislation. They are the watchdogs to ensure that everyone come in compliance.
Right.
And I've been to several information sharing experiences, information dissemination, where they have given the actual, what the regulations are saying and what is the anticipated levels of performance for the various brokerage houses and the persons engaged in real estate, not only front line with the customers, but all the back office people that have an important role to play.
Because ethics isn't just in the front, it's also from behind.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. You see, this thing about ethics has to be a virus.
Yeah.
a virus that is implicit, that it's present. You know, we have the coronavirus present, and you know, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but you can see the effect of it. In like manner, when ethics become an internalized virus in how we behave, our consciousness and how we do business, in like manner, you will see the end results, the effect of it. I mean, it won't be a mass. It just be there more smiling faces, and there's more trust in the business transactions and in the workplace. People are more prepared to just embrace everyone that comes to the table, because, you know, we're all dealing at that high level of operation and high level of expectancy of what that level should be. And the Financial Services Commission, in their task with educating and being the watchdogs, the regulators have in the trainings that I've gone to, and there's been several of them, have made a special note to us about having compliance officers present, trained in each brokerage houses to report any kind of suspicious transactions, especially where the source of funds becomes questionable, and any layering. That was an important, critical word. Layering was expected, and layering, just for the audience that might be listening, layering is any attempt to hide or disguise the original source of funds through a series of complex financial transactions. Is more or less trying to clean up the money, and then the money then is placed into legitimate businesses. Real estate is only one of them. You could buy a restaurant, you can open a laundromat, you can do anything that will generate revenues or continue to generate revenues for the future, and eventually you're able to, after you've had it for a while, sell it off. And one of the signs is flipping of properties, when properties get purchased at a good price, and is a great property for the purpose of the investment, and then soon after the person sells it, they have the right to sell it, but at the same time, it should raise a flag. And if it's such a hot jurisdiction for real estate, then we that's a good place to look.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, like you say, and that's why it's so important that all of these things are monitored, especially when you think about the real estate industry. You have to make sure that you are portraying those ethics to make sure that there's confidence and there's competence also among agents and among buyers to make sure everything is in order. But most of all, like you say, I'm glad you talked about the micro and the macro, talking about TCI, the FSC. Everyone has a part to play in ensuring that ethics are put forward in the businesses to make sure everything runs smoothly. So I want to say also one thing, no one gets into a business unless they're trying to be profitable.
True.
And you were talking you said earlier about it should be people, other things, and then profit.
People, planet, profit.
Profit, right. So, but can you explain then, how can ethical standards protect profitability in the long term? Because I think that will be important, because profitability is important to a business.
Extremely important. Remember, we have already witnessed, and I've made mention of it only as a reference point, the financial meltdown of 2008 that affected the planet.
Right.
I've already mentioned that.
Yeah.
And we know that a lot of the financial intermediaries, and I'm going on the macro now to explain the micro.
Right.
Many of the financial intermediaries, the insurance company, the pension funds, the multiplicity of banks and other people who were traditionally the keepers of the public trust and confidence, because there was a time in the history of recent history where a banker, a lawyer, an insurance agent were on the same level as a physician, a doctor. They were the keepers of public confidence and trust, like a priest.
Mm-hmm.
They garnered the same, respect of the expectation that they would do right and make the right ethical decisions. The 2008 financial crisis proved otherwise. That the very same institutions, we could call it an institution, for example, the institutions of society that hitherto were given this great vote of confidence were the very ones who transgressed that confidence, all for the profit motive. When profit alone becomes the catalyst, the driver of your whole purpose for going into business, without an understanding of your social responsibility to start a business, maintain a business, to grow a business, but also inclusive of the wellness and well-being of your neighborhood, your constituents of people, your customers, your other outside contractors, and everyone who do business with you, just not your stakeholders. When you begin to encompass that bigger picture and understand you're doing business to also safeguard the environment. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do anything detrimental to affect future generations of Turks and Caicos Islanders. Now, we're on the micro level now. Mm-hmm. We don't want to do anything. And see, sometimes there's an absence of that consciousness of generations yet unborn. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like the commercial said, I want my money and I want it now. But I could be selfish like that, only think about me now, and I destroy, through short-sightedness, the very future that I have a responsibility as a business person and practitioner and a human being to protect.
So it's basically you treat ethics like an investment.
Of course it is. It is in every step of the way. As you do unto it, it shall surely do unto you.
But definitely in any business environment that you go into, everyone is expected to be treated in a good way.
Yes.
And you think about if you do not exhibit, ethics from the top down, so you can lose customers because of that. So then in turn, of course, then the business will not be profitable. Yes. So that's why you need to think ethics in terms, and it will produce profitability in the long run. You have to be trustworthy.
Right. Ethics, Vanika, is a culture. Mm-hmm. And the culture of every organization is driven by leadership. Mm-hmm. The chairman of the board, the CEO, every manager on the management team, every supervisor. There's a great and awesome responsibility. And, people have gone into business without even recognizing the existence of that great and awesome responsibility. It's almost like getting married and you're not ready for it. That's a great and awesome responsibility. And you're taking something on before you're even ready to embrace the truth of what that really entails.
Right.
So the only thing that can happen is a train wreck, blood on the carpet, because you're doing something without a full deck of cards on the full implication on life, not only for you,
Right.
but for others who you asking. It's akin to jumping on a plane and you're the pilot and you're inviting people on the plane and you have no flight plan. You don't know how to fly.
Mm-hmm.
How many people have started businesses like that? Don't have a clue. Don't have a business plan. Don't understand the intricacies. What market you're going to serve. Mm-hmm. What their needs are. What are the needs analysis? How is that shifting? Who else is doing what you do? What market share do they have? What segment of that market you're going after? All these things are implicit that one must begin to understand, as opposed to saying, I want to start this business, I want to do this, or I want to do that. It now takes, in our complex 21st century world,
right,
a world of cryptocurrencies,
mm-hmm.
a world of fast-moving innovation, a world in which breakthrough today could be old 2 months from now because something has superseded it as a new level of a breakthrough. Well, you have to be cognizant. You have to be on your feet. You have to be relational to your environment and everything around you. It's demanding mm-hmm. a different kind of consciousness in every facet of business, and ethics is the very same way. When people are working for you and you handle them right, I didn't say be slack. I didn't say let people do what they want, but right. the rules and the guidelines are clear, and you handle them right, fairly, justly. You pay them right. Mm-hmm. You don't hold back what is due to them. You show them that human side. Listen, everybody looking for love. Mm-hmm. You hear what I'm saying? Everyone's looking. And I don't mean like a love, yes. as in a love affair, but you understand what I'm yes. saying? Respect.
Right.
Everyone wants to be recognized as a human being. Mm-hmm. They want you to know what their name is. They want you to be relational, a smile.
Right.
Knowing that my boss hard, but boy, he fair.
Exactly. And people appreciate that.
People, they want to know the devil they're dancing with or the saint they're dancing with. Mm-hmm. Once you fear, like I said, this principle of the universe, mm-hmm. what you pour into it, it pours back into you.
Yeah.
I do believe that with all my heart. And ethics is critical, very critical. And it's an area we have to just keep pounding on the doors on, not only in terms of real estate, but in every facet of life, in every engagement of life, in everything that we do. And I'm able to talk about this mm-hmm. so freely only because I believe it with all my heart.
Yes. No, I think ethics is a very important subject that we all should be talking about in our workplaces, not just real estate, like you have mentioned time and time again, but in everything we do. And one of the things also that came to mind when you were saying about everyone is looking for love, I just thought about, a lot of times people go to the church looking because they feel that they are going to get that comfort and security there. And it's based on ethics as well. So that same type of thing you're looking for in your workplace. You want to be a part of any organization yes. that you're going to get that fair treatment. And every yes. organization should have that type of structure. And I think yes. a lot more things can be achieved if you have that ethical structure. And I want to say one yes. last thing, because I know we've surpassed the time frame.
Yes,
in a leadership position, and of course you're familiar with this because of course you do have that whole empowerment leadership program.
Yes.
That's right. One of the things I think is most important, that as a leader, you must have those ethical standards because you are dealing with so many different attitudes and personalities, and right. you have to have a fair output about dealing with people in their day-to-day activities and their day-to-day business aspects. And I think if we can, have this conversation in all businesses, I think that it can be a better comfort level even with your customers. And I think it can produce more profitability for your businesses in the long run. You want that trustworthiness out of those organizations as a customer.
Indeed, Vanika. Undoubtedly, most assuredly, your statement is spot on, 100% plus accurate. That cannot be sidestepped. Mm-hmm. It cannot be downplayed. It's critical to our survivability, sustainability, to our future, to have those components of ethics. And it's bigger than, as I said, you said it over and over again, it's bigger than just real estate. It's in every facet of life. So the first partaker of ethics is going to be the individual on an individual level. Mm-hmm. Because all you do when you enter a corporate level with more individuals, you bring to the ballpark who you really are.
Correct.
There's no change to become something different.
Correct.
That you're not back there,
Mm-hmm.
So interesting, very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So I think it's really a pleasure speaking with you today about the topics of ethics. Having you on the show was really good, and it just brings a lot more things to your mind, your forefront, and as I say mind, I'm thinking mindset. You gotta get your mind in the right place and make sure that ethics is right on the top of your mind in terms of pushing it forward in your day-to-day walk of life, as well as to be able, because you're affecting others because of it. Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to ask you at this time, please leave your contact information in the event someone wants to get in contact with you. Like when we started at the beginning, you are involved with so many things. You're involved with real estate. Right. You're involved with empowerment. Just talking to you today shows that you have a lot of knowledge to share, and that even you can share with organizations even on this topic. Please leave your contact information for those who are listening and will probably like to reach out to you.
Right. My contact numbers are as follows. Email B as in boy, young as in the young and the restless, mm-hmm. TCI, as for Turks and Caicos Islands, shortened TCI @gmail.com. I also have the business real estate, the business login number, not login number, the business email. Yes. As Genesis, GENESIS, leadership, LEADERSHIP @yahoo.com. Genesis leadership, and Genesis means beginnings, transformative, change, new. Genesis Leadership Institute. And the phone contacts are as follows. Area code 649-244-6194, and my USA Vonage line 269-288-0404.
Thank you once again.
I'm on Facebook.
Go ahead.
You can get me on Facebook.
Go ahead.
Just put in Bernard Young and you're there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on today. And I also want to say, thank you. I want to also say to those in the audience, you can always leave a comment. You can always leave your questions. We'll get back to you. Or you can always just email direct. Bishop Young have already advised you of his contact information. And I also want to say thank you always for listening in and tuning in. Please like and share this page, because I believe that it's a lot of good information that can be distributed out to those who are in need of it. So until next time, I would like to say to you, as always, stay safe and remain blessed. Have a good afternoon. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk And Let's Talk TCI real estate guest or host will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.